A lot of meat alternatives were suggested for World War I, and these two recipes use legumes and tree nuts.
This was a time when they were really trying to save meat and get Americans to eat less beef and pork so that they could send it to Europe. The problem was that most Americans, or many Americans at least, believed that meat was essential to health. They didn't have a great understanding of protein, that you could get protein from nuts or legumes. And this was the time when nutrition scientists were just starting to have a lot of authority, and World War I served as a big form of nutrition education for Americans. However, peanut butter was getting more popular, in part because Southerners were growing more of it and growing less cotton, and marketing campaigns like the Beech Nut Company promoting peanut butter as a great food for school children.
What else would peanuts have been used for?
Well, in the World War I era, as a meat substitute, they were used in things like peanut loaf, which would have been seen as a substitute for meatloaf.
It's not that necessarily peanut butter was healthier than meat, but had the same nutrients, had protein, had the fats. And the idea was that meat should be saved for soldiers, especially strong men who needed to eat red meat.
This was a real opportunity for nutrition scientists to talk about the fact that different foods contained nutritive components, that it wasn't just steak, but it was proteins and fats, and you could get those same proteins and fats from eating lentils or nuts. And that was really new. It was a very new way of thinking about food as containing constituent elements. This is good. It does definitely challenge my sort of genre of soup, because it's not particularly salty. It is quite sweet.
When did the peanut butter and jelly sandwich start?
By the 1920s, I'm seeing a lot of references to it, both for school children and also as a recommended cheap, healthy lunch for workers.
A lot of these cookbooks have recipes for cream cheese. Can anybody explain that?
People really prioritized dairy at this point. Dairy was considered, especially cow's milk, was considered one of the most healthful foods, especially for children. So cream cheese was one vehicle for getting dairy into people, along with another new food that people were promoting, which was cottage cheese.
Milk really was considered the perfect food by many progressive reformers, and they believed that it had the perfect balance of fats, proteins, and sugars.
One thing that the mayonnaise would have signified to people at the time was a sort of high-class French connotation. They might have pronounced it mayonnaise if they were really highfalutin, because we think of it as sort of, a very ordinary condiment, but at the time it would have really talked about French high cuisine to people.
How is it? It's really good. The mayonnaise is actually nice. It works.
You're a genius. I think it's kind of good.
They're delicious. Well, this is the end of our first course in our soup to nuts meal. Actually, this is soup and nuts, but we'll come back to it. So thank you all.